So, question for everyone, Star Wars fans, anyone watching this video, and especially, Element and Mike here. I'm curious, have fans gotten more entitled in the past few years? Does it not feel like instead of watching content for what it is, for the story being told, they're watching it expecting a specific story to be told, and gauging their enjoyment off of how strictly we adhere to the story they imagine being told? Is that a change? Has this always been the case? What do you guys think?
I feel like that has always happened. I always go back to my initial gripes with the Revenge of the Sith were based on YouTube speculation that didn't pan out. There was some stuff about like his outfit. I forget who made it, but somebody did this big video breakdown of how we were going to see an early version of his helmet and the suit, and how we're going to see all these injuries that you can see, and we'll see like a slow build up towards the Darth Vader look that we know from A New Hope. And then what do they do at the end of Revenge of the Sith? We put him straight into the Vader suit that we know from A New Hope. And I was just like, what? Like, how could they do that? There's 20 years in between the movies. Of course his outfit's going to change or whatever. And so, I mean, I'm guilty of that. I had an idea in my head that's like, oh, that sounds cool. And it wasn't my idea even. It was just somebody put it up on the video. So like, we're part of the problem in that sense, just like getting up here and speculating and talking about what's going to come next. But I've always tried to take the approach that, okay, here's what I think might happen. But if it doesn't, it's still okay. And I'll go on and, I try to bring it to a healthy place of like, well, so here's, even though I thought this might happen, I'm actually really stoked about how this happened. I try to put a balance in there of what I would like to see versus what we actually get, and that's still good. Just because it's not what I expected, it doesn't mean it's not good. And if anything, the fact that I couldn't predict it is fun, because so much TV and movies are just predictable now. If you can't predict something, they keep you guessing somehow. I feel like that's a good thing.
Yeah, something I've always said is like, if you grab a cup and take a swig, and it's Sprite, if you were expecting water, you're gonna spit it out of your mouth. Sprite could be your favorite soda. If you weren't expecting it, you're gonna spit it out, and we can fall into that trap definitely. So I like that.
I don't know if I like that analogy, because if I tasted Sprite instead of water, I'd probably go,
hey, nice. This is good water.
It's like a small secret treat. If I expected water and tasted like, I don't know, gin. Los Angeles tap water, I'd be like, that's not what I wanted.
It's like booty tea.
But in terms of like the question, I've come to this realization quite recently, and we've talked about it a couple of times, Choco, you and I, about those blessed with the information are also cursed with it. Because if we have all of the information in the world and go into a show with that baggage, we are then expecting certain things to happen, certain connections to be made, and we even say, oh, if you should watch Rebels if you're going to watch Ahsoka. But when Ahsoka came out, there was only characters from Rebels. There wasn't really any kind of connection that you were required to have. And so a lot of people thought you needed to do homework to watch these shows, but it's us that have done the homework that were making those proclamations, right? Like I said, my brother watched it. He hasn't watched Clone Wars. He hasn't watched Rebels. He's just watched the saga films. He watched Ahsoka. He was like, that was great. And he didn't even know who Ahsoka was. So like a lot of people who kind of come in with and I'll say it here, as I said it in my previous video, the Dunning-Kruger effect, with the knowledge that they think they know, but not enough to know when they're wrong, will start to attach certain criteria and rules. Oh, it broke hyperspace rules, whatever. Rules and kind of boundaries to the medium that will then make it bad because it did not adhere to those rules. And we've seen it in the Acolyte where people were like, Kiarimundi shouldn't be here based on the fact that of what I know or have seen from a YouTube video, because I know nobody read the Star Wars Insider with his Legends birthday, you know. And this whole mess about the vergences in the Force and how Anakin is supposed to be the only one is yet another proof that people thought they know what they were talking about, but they didn't. And so again, you're blessed and you're cursed with information, and it is a problem that that we've seen in the fandom for sure for a long time. You know, this show needs to be like this. Like, I'm not going to name names, but we know who said this. The only way the Acolyte is going to be good is if Plagueis shows up. And I'm like, what?
I kind of never want to see Plagueis on screen at this point. I feel like that's one of the mystery boxes that we shouldn't open, like with Yoda's origin, right? Like, we don't know what planet he's from, and we're never supposed to. Even the name of his species is supposed to be a secret. I think it's in the contract. A friend of mine just told me that's like it was written into the contract when Disney's bought Lucasfilm. Yeah. George Lucas had a couple of stipulations, and that was one of them. Just, you don't ever get to tell anyone where Yoda's from. And I like that. I like that there's some mystery that's reserved in the universe.
I think George Lucas, when he sold the IP, realized how much power he himself had. And we were talking about this in the pre-show.
He was just flexing at the end.
Yeah. He's like, we were talking about the whimsy of George Lucas. Like, literally, he canonized Stu John on The Daily Show with Jon Stewart. And that was the power he held. And when he sold it, he was like, I don't think I want anybody like going on to a talk show and being like, Yoda is from Odoi. And it's a good protection to have. Like, you don't want any single person in Lucasfilm going on and canonizing Yoda's home planet and his species. It's like, oh yeah, there are a whole bunch of frogs out there, and you know, just kind of like minimizing the mystique around that one individual. And he did the same thing for Anakin's origins as well.
Right. Yeah, that was the other piece that they wrote in. That's right. But I mean, I guess on the topic that you're discussing, I mean, as far as like bringing Plagueis in as a prerequisite, you know, that's kind of.
I think where I land on that,
to be unhappy.
I think where I land on that is we need a Sith, because the show was pitched as an expansion on Sith ideology, and I feel like going into, and we'll discuss this more when we get into the Acolyte, but I feel like going into the final kind of the final countdown of this show, there's gotta be a Sith somewhere behind the scenes being like, this was all for naught. This was my experiment and it has failed, and he needs to kill everybody. And
okay, but how are you going to feel if that doesn't happen?
The world is over, and
Star Wars is trash now.
Star Wars will be dead. I will be making a series over the next 10 years over how Star Wars is dead every year.
Making my entire personality.
The Wolf of Loath Street says the only time I want to see Plagueis is for a Palpatine movie. But I don't even know if I want that. Just how I feel. Isaiah in my chat says the Plagueis novel is so good that I don't know if I'd want to see another interpretation of it. And that is one of my big things, because I keep hearing like, "Oh, this book was so good. We need to just make this a movie." And
You're not going to like that.
You have the book. let the book be the book. Make a movie that's like, I don't know, fleshes out one of the characters in it or something like that. But like, I think it's weird to spend time on content that you already have.
Yeah.
Right. It's going to be, there's going to be discrepancies. There's going to be some kind of little tweak that they make that you're going to be furious about.
Hello, Greg.
And then you're going to have to argue with somebody about which one's canon. Like, just leave it. Make another story with those characters, or, they're doing meanwhile. I like what they're doing with kind of getting back into the wheel of time, but they're doing a lot of, here's what happened in the book, but there's all this stuff that we kind of know happened elsewhere off the page, and we'll get an episode about that. So I really like that approach of just like, yeah, you still got your books. You'll always have your books. Let's see some more content. Let's make new content for the screen.
I
mean,
think
the people that have the best job of it right now, and I only know this kind of because I haven't actually read the book, but House of the Dragon, there's a lot of things or events in the show that aren't actually told. Like, you're told what has happened from the perspective of someone, and so when you can see it, all they have to do is hit the broad strokes, but they can still tell their own narrative. But I think a lot of people are still mad at certain things, though.
They'll always be mad about something.
Oh yeah, I mean, Witcher, for another example, when they talk about how I guess the second season, they did things out of continuity with the book, but if you read the book, it's not in continuity with anything. It is a string of stories that The Witcher tells. Like,
that's like the framing device for the book itself it's already just sort of
there's no linear continuity to the stories that are being told in The Last Wish. It is literally just a bunch of campfire stories about The Witcher and what he goes through. So when he visits his old friend that is the boar with Ciri, that doesn't happen at any given point in chronology. It's just one of the stories in The Last Wish, and people are like, well, this didn't happen at this time. They didn't say it happened at any time. Like, they literally just visited it out of chronology in the show.
I think that's probably one of the challenging things about telling stories on screen in the first place, is just getting that concept across, because so many viewers don't get that these stories are stories. They're not literal interpretations. It's not documentary. We're not filming this stuff as it goes. It's pretend. I mean, I think they get that it's pretend, but there's something about our brains being tricked by seeing it actually happen in front of us, that where we're like, okay, well, this is canon. So canon means it actually happened this way. but you can have a canon of stories that are all legitimately, part of the same, canon.